many years, Marie Delcioppo has been the for many years, Marie Delcioppo has been the president of the Daniel Island Neighborhood Association, and now she wants to represent Daniel Island on Charleston City Council. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with her one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Listen to this interview next week on my free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. And right now, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Marie Delcioppo, it is so good to meet you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to meet you too.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me out today.
Anytime, right here on Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yes.
Obviously, you are currently the president of the Daniel Island Neighborhood Association. But now you want to be the next city councilwoman for District 1.
Yes.
What got you from being the Daniel Island Neighborhood Association president to now saying, hey, I want to run for city council?
Sure. And that's a question I get asked all the time. Having been the president of the Neighborhood Association, it's been, I guess, about 18, 20 months now. You really, especially of being the Neighborhood Association president of a neighborhood the size of Daniel Island, so close to 11,000 folks, you really start to see government processes. You're constantly involved with, we're most often involved with members of the city, but certainly we also have the port, SCDOT, the county, the state, so with all these different agencies. And so as I, continue doing work as the president and different things I was able to accomplish, I really felt as though I could expand upon that to the benefit of the community by then becoming elected to city council.
What have you accomplished as president of this neighborhood association?
Sure. The biggest thing that I get told that people have, like most about my presidency is the communication.
Okay.
That residents very much appreciate the constant communication that I'm in with them, how responsive I am to them. If they email me or call me about something, I respond. And then all those different government and industry agencies also have expressed such appreciation for the open lines of communication that I've developed, not only, let's say from me to the city, but let's say it's something that also involves the county.
Sure.
Making sure all three, we're all involved in the exact same conversation, knowing the exact same information.
Where should the conversation go about infrastructure, particularly in District 1?
In District 1, which seems like several pieces, and it's almost always considered kind of three different areas. You've got those portions of Clements Ferry Road that have been incorporated into the city. You've got Daniel Island, and then you have Ansonboro, French Quarter neighborhoods of downtown.
Sure.
Because of the geography of Charleston, there's water between us, and so it makes these areas feel very distinct. But they're not. We all have different variations of the same concerns. Our concerns are growth and development. A lot of folks are moving here, and they're moving here. I ask people every day. I grew up here in Charleston, and so I'm always interested as like, well, why would someone move to Charleston? So I'm always asking people, well, why'd you move here? Why'd you move here? And regardless of age, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of anything, they all say they moved here for a lifestyle. And so I feel as though your government officials, your elected officials, are beholden to uphold this lifestyle that we've sold. You can tell I come from a marketing background. We don't want folks to move here and go, well, this isn't what they sold me, right? Then it's like false advertising. That would only do the city a detriment. So we want to make sure that what we're identifying ourselves as is what we're delivering.
How do you define quality life, and particularly in District 1 in 2019?
I think people want to be able to more easily commute.
Sure.
You know, Daniel Island, you have to get on 526 or you have to go up Clements Ferry. And, you know, last week there was a broken down vehicle on the broken down tractor trailer on the Wando Bridge. The entire city became backed up. I mean, you just can't continue like that. You know, so then I was rerouted to go 26 and come in through Mount Pleasant. Well, that's how everybody was being rerouted. So then that got backed up and there was an accident. You know, it just is this ripple effect, and that severely hinders your quality of life when you just easily want to navigate somewhere. You know, of course, we all know Clements Ferry Road and the widening it's undergoing. You know, and so that becomes an issue for the folks living there. Downtown,
Oh, yes.
flooding
Sure.
is huge. That, you know, hinders your quality of life. Overcrowding of the area. So, you know, again, it's all the same thing, but slightly different variations depending on where in the district you live.
You talk about the Clements Ferry Road widening. Where should that discussion go next?
Well, you know, it's a lot of folks have said, well, you know, they're so behind. They're actually not. You know, it's phase 1 isn't supposed to be done until the end of 2019.
Right.
And from what I understand, it's still on track for that. It's a massive undertaking. You have the land that you need in order to widen the road is owned by individuals, so you need to get into purchase agreements with those people. You know, water, sewer, electrical lines, you know, all this stuff has to be moved. So it's a big undertaking. So I know it's frustrating sometimes because people will go, I don't see anybody working on this road as they're stuck in traffic on Clements Ferry. Like, why aren't they out here so we can, you know, get this done faster? And it doesn't necessarily mean that things aren't being done. It just means that, you know, paving the road isn't where they're at in that section right now. There's probably other things that are going on.
What are those other things?
As I was mentioning, you know, having to purchase land in order to widen the road, that can sometimes take some time. Moving water lines and sewer lines and, you know, buried electrical wires, you know, so you've got to move all that. So, you know, that can definitely, that adds layers to things. And so I think, you know, one of the things, for example, on Daniel Island, we have a roundabout being constructed. That really, you know, is rightfully raising some concerns amongst residents. And one of the things I've really strived for is to just get on top of the communication. And the county and the engineering firm have been amazing about that. And every week they send me, here's what's going to happen for the week.
Right.
And so then we push that out to
Sure.
residents. And so it helps abate some of those concerns and fears because people, they know what to expect. They know what's going on. It's like, okay, here's what's going to happen. And then this is going to happen. And I think we can do the same type of thing on Clements Ferry. You know, hey, here's what's going on right now. And, you know, we've got to get this done, and then we can do this. You know, to help, I think, abate that immediate jump to conclusion of like, oh, bureaucracy.
What is going on with the Wando Bridge? If you were to talk to engineering firms and the SC of DOT right
Oh,
now,
goodness.
what would you tell them? Should it be replaced? Should it be more repairs? What's going on?
I think that any bridge that requires that amount of inspections, you need to raise an eyebrow at that. So, you know, what is the feasibility? You know, again, if we look at replacing, it's not just a bridge we have to replace. It's you know, you've got land on either side with road, so how would those roads need to be reconfigured? How would all of that timing play out? Obviously, what's the expense of that? Where's that money going to come from? Versus what can be repaired here? And best, like, we go all out and do every repair you're suggesting. What does that bring us to? So I think getting very crystal clear around those. then helps better drive a decision. You know, if through repairs, it can be fully functioning and safe, and people feel confident in it, then we can, that would, you know, be the path of least resistance. If not, I will never put a price tag on safety. If it needs to, you know, be like the Cooper River bridges, and you've got to build another bridge in the interim, and then that one comes down to go over to that one, then that's the discussion we have. So I think, again, you need to get all these various agencies involved and really to the table, and sharing that with the community, and sharing the pros and cons of each, and what are the hurdles we have to overcome. And you know, a lot of times people, you know, us outsiders looking, we don't know all of the layers of that things must go through, and all the different agencies involved. So making that clear for folks to understand and be able to drive a decision that's made.
And if we had to, say for instance, a whiteboard right behind us, how would you describe the pros and cons of the Wando Bridge?
I mean, I think the cons that we see is it bottlenecks. You know, and you have a lot of truck traffic. Trucks inevitably can't make it up the incline as fast as a car.
Okay.
So that will slow things down. But you see the Wando Bridge and the Donholt Bridge both, you know, they narrow from the road. So now you've got folks in 3 lanes, and then suddenly they have to go into 2. That's an inherent issue. And then now, especially on the Wando, that you don't have the truck lane or the pull-off lane. So if there's, you know, a fender bender or, you know, something like that, you can't pull off to the side. Now, I've lost that lane, and now I've lost the lane of the car that's, of the vehicle that's broken down. So now I'm down to 1 lane. So I've gone from 3 now to 1. So, you know, inherent things like that, that I think really need to be discussed. And, you know, where are we with the safety of that bridge? You know, SCDOT, I think it's been several months now, kind of gave a, you know, state of the bridge report.
Right.
So are we still at that point, or have we done other things? So, you know, if every, let's say, quarter we got an update or something, you know, so we knew things were continuing to progress, I think would help a lot.
What are those other inherent issues?
As far as
The Wando Bridge.
you have a port that's incredibly expanding,
Right.
which, hey, I tell people, as I sit here and I'm talking to you, I have horrible, horrible back pain that never leaves and runs down my leg, because when I was a senior in college and I was driving home to Charleston from University of Florida for Christmas, an 18-wheeler drove me off the road in the middle of Georgia on I-95, and I badly injured my back. I am as terrified of trucks as the next person. However, I also really like going to Publix and Target and Lowe's, and the shelves are stocked, and the only way those items, those goods get to those businesses is from trucks. So I can't let my emotion drive a decision, or what happened to just me drive a decision. And the port is incredible for the economy. The number of jobs it creates directly, and then the offshoot of those jobs, is immense and very beneficial for our state. It's interesting the conversations now happening around possibly using barges.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's, you know, again, some innovative type of thinking that has to happen. That port, you know, of course it's going to grow. The more demand there is, the more it has to grow. The more goods have to be shipped. The more people who move here and visit here, the more cars we have on the road and people getting from point A to point B. So again, we need to have those conversations around okay, and the way the port is situated, it has to be on water. So what are our inherent difficulties here, given a bridge, and what conversations need to happen so we can continue to all grow, which we want to see is that growth and progress, but in a way that, as I said earlier, keeps that promise of the lifestyle we're selling people, which is making them want to move here and visit here.
And you talked about visiting Charleston. You talked earlier about Ansbro and French Quarter. You talked about emotions as well. Where are your emotions when it comes to carriages in Charleston?
This is always a tough one, and I go back and forth. I never want to put anyone out of business. And those carriage companies have been around. They've been in families for generations. These are wonderful families of our community. They do a lot for our community and our amazing citizens, and they take wonderful care of those horses. And my office just happens to be on Ginyard, which is where 4 of the 5 carriage companies are. So I see them unload and load the the trailers every day. And those carriage rides lend to the charm of our community. But on the other hand, as we see more growth, do we need to work with those carriage companies on the number of visitors they're transporting per carriage ride? Do we need to look at the temperature of when the horses ride? Do we need to look at maybe there's only a certain number of carriage tours per day? Are they only at certain times a day? Do they only take a specific route so as to, not factor into congestion and thus frustration? Because, you'll see people trying to swerve around a carriage to, get by it and get home or get to work. And that then creates a safety concern, not only for vehicular, but then for that horse and the guide and the visitors. So we want to make sure that, again, how are we going to appropriately balance what is our new normal? This growth is our new normal, and we have to embrace it. I love that the world is now getting to experience what those of us who've lived here for a long time have always known Charleston to be. And so I want folks to experience that, but we also have to uphold folks who have invested their entire life, everything they have, into moving here and living here and working here.
You talk about growth. Let me talk to you about the hotel task force. Obviously, the mayor and the city of Charleston have created that, and they'll have a press conference that is right here at 11 a.m. If you were on city council right now, who would you appoint to that task force?
I think you have to bring in members of the Visitors Bureau. There's a gentleman whose name is escaping me, and I'm part of the travel council for the Visitors Bureau, and he's with the College of Charleston and has amazing data on accommodations and number of rooms and things like that. So I think you need to bring in someone like that who can deliver that science, because again, we have to get real about where we are. Okay, here's the numbers, here's what we have now, here's what's been slated for development, things like that. So I think you bring in someone like that who's extremely keen. You bring in some folks from the Visitors Bureau. You bring in some of these hotel developers. They need to be a part of the conversation. You need traffic studies. So, if that's members of traffic and transportation, stormwater, all of those things that factor into a hotel being built. You'd want to bring in, I would say, those larger employers, restaurants, tour companies, hotels, because they are having some inherent difficulties finding and retaining employees. As the cost of living continues to go up, it's hard for those folks to afford to live here. And that needs to be addressed as well.
Where is your data?
I go to presentations with the Visitors Bureau, and I get copies of the PowerPoint presentations and
Okay.
things like that. So that's where I get most of my information regarding those numbers.
Okay.
And also just following, what's going before the Board of Zoning Appeals,
Right.
what's going before Design Review
Right.
Board, BAR,
Right.
all those. And walking around too and saying, okay, well, what's going up here? What are they tearing this down to put up? So really trying to inquire more, and it's a lot. It's a very, it can sometimes get overwhelming because you feel like every time you turn around, there's, oh man, I missed that one. So really trying to wrap our arms around that. And what are cities of comparable sizes? What are their, hotel, number of rooms,
Okay.
or in proportion with the size of the city versus how many visitors it attracts. Are we in proportion with that for our size and number of visitors we attract?
Gentrification. How do you define that in 2019, particularly in District 1?
Sure. I think we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, folks who work in the hospitality industry not being able to afford to live close to where they work. Because so many of these communities, prices have skyrocketed. So many of the multifamily complexes we see being built,
Right.
I feel as though they want the same person to move in to each one, and they're pricey, and that's not attainable for a lot of folks. So they have to move further and further away, and that's a longer commute for them. That puts strain on your roads. That puts strain on your lifestyle. If you're sitting in traffic twice a day, 5 days a week, that takes a toll on you after a while. I really, what makes Charleston so special, and throughout our history, what has made us so special is our diversity. That's what we love to celebrate here. And I think that we need to honor that when we're looking at what is being developed where. Our diversity needs to be factored into that, because that's who we are. That's the fabric of Charleston. I don't ever want to lose that. I love meeting people of all different backgrounds, and that's how I learn. I learn by meeting people different from me. I don't want to be surrounded by people who are just like me. I want to be surrounded by people who come from so many different experiences and backgrounds. That's how you grow. That's how you progress. That's how you learn. That's how you thrive as an individual, as a community. And we need to honor that. I think it's critical.
What have you learned about housing? Is it affordable housing or is it attainable housing in your mind?
Right. Well, you actually taught me the term attainable housing, and I know I just said that earlier because you and I had that in an earlier discussion, and I like that term attainable more than affordable.
Okay.
Affordable, I feel, is it's a little bit more subjective. But can you attain this house? I mean, everybody some people are willing to spend a whole lot more on a place to live, but because that's where they like to spend their money, as opposed to, I'm not really as into clothes or travel, but I really like to have a nice place to live. So that gets a little bit, I feel, more muddied, whereas attainable is a much more objective word. And I think that's a very good point you raise in calling it attainable housing, and making sure diverse populations can appropriately live and live, work. They can make sure they're paying their bills, and take care of their children and their family, and make sure they can afford appropriate medical care and all of those things, that they're not being driven out of the neighborhood because they just can't attain living there anymore.
And obviously there's a lot of other issues going on in the city, including the Dutch talks. Describe the Dutch talks in one word for me.
Oh,
One word.
lengthy.
Why is it lengthy in your mind?
Again, I think this goes back to the discussion earlier of having your outsiders be a little bit more privy to the process. You know, from what I hear from so many people, and certainly what I feel is, oh my goodness, we just keep talking and we have another study and we have another meeting. Like, when are we going to do something? You know, and I've learned we've actually have started doing quite a few things. But I think we got to do more, and we got to do more quick. Water doesn't, it goes anywhere it can, unless, you know, you stop it. And we have to. A road that's covered in water is not a road.
And if you were on the city council right now, how would you stop this controversy over the Charleston School of Law location?
From what I've read, you know, which is the same as what everybody else has read in the paper, if there was a contract, an agreement between the School of Law and the City of Charleston, that needs to be upheld. And if one entity is trying to, you know, get out of that contract, that's a breach of contract, you know, per the terms of the contract, and there's a penalty for that. So, you know, you have to know what the terms of that contract are, and if there's an exit strategy out of that contract, and what is it, and, you know, what's the price you pay if you break the contract, and that's, you've got to honor that.
And how much money should the city of Charleston receive from the Charleston School of Law if you were on the city council?
Whatever is laid out in the terms of that agreement is what the city is then owed.
And I know obviously you've been attending a lot of city council meetings. When you sit in that audience, how do you view the city of Charleston City Council right now?
I think the same way so many folks do. There's seemingly a lot of divisiveness, not just amongst council members, but then also from council to mayor. My concern is, what is the trickle-down effect of that? Is this hindering progress from being made on certain issues because of conflicts, because of internal conflicts? And I just think that it starts at the top.
Okay.
If your leadership is representing cohesion and transparency and constructive debate, it's going to, everyone else will follow suit. You know, those relationships have to be made. You know, being president of the neighborhood association, my first thing I did was reach out to all of our elected officials, to who would be my point of contact at, you know, the port, at SCENG, at SCDOT, all of this, so that we could all work together, so that when issues arise, I'm not suddenly, now I'm introducing myself to you because I have a problem. We've already developed a relationship. We have a rapport. I know you, you know me, we know where each other are coming from. It makes things move a lot quicker and a lot more productively when that happens.
How do you hope the mayor communicates with you if you were to be elected on council?
You know, if, you know, Mayor Tecklenburg currently, he and I have always had a very great relationship.
Okay.
He's helped me with a lot of things on Daniel Island. And, you know, I've always fostered that communication with him and with his staff. So whether he gets reelected or we have a new mayor, I hope to have that same rapport of this is, you know, this is who I am, and this is why I'm here. You know, who are you and why are you here? And who are your staff? And if I have this question, who should I go to? If I have this question, who should I go to? You know, to really help, you know, have a mutual respect and a mutual understanding of one another.
Do you understand city council?
You know, probably as best as the next person. You know, I certainly do my best to stay on top of issues coming before council. And sometimes it gets difficult to know, well, okay, well, how would that affect my community? And so I would like to see that communicated a little more. One of the things that I would like to do if I was the city council member for District 1 is to have folks be able to sign up for an email list, and if it's once a month, I send out a newsletter of, hey, here's what's happened this month, and here's exactly what that means to you. I think that might be helpful.
And when you look around District 1, what are the top 3 businesses in your mind?
We have Blackbaud and Benefit Focus on Daniel Island, which are big employers. On Clements Ferry, you've got, like Gildan
Right.
is up there. As you travel further up Clements Ferry, then you get into a lot of the sand mines, which are quite an industry. And then downtown, you're predominantly seeing the hospitality industry. The downtown portion of District 1, you're seeing the restaurants, the bars, the historical attractions, the hotels, things of that nature.
And when you talk all about that, it's always a topic about public transportation.
Sure.
Where are you in this discussion?
I think public transportation needs to be taken very seriously. I'm glad to hear that it is being taken seriously, and there are steps to create a mass transit. I think that when people come to visit an area, when I have people come on vacation here, they're like, well, do I get on a subway from the airport to downtown, or can I take a bus? And I'm like, wow, so people expect that when they come to visit an area. We've seen with HOP,
Oh, yeah.
the hospitality on the peninsula, what an overwhelming success that's been. It's just amazing that so many employees are taking advantage of this. And I think it's a win-win for everyone. They don't have to bear the expense and extra time, they don't have to bear the expense of paying for parking further down the peninsula. They don't have to drive around looking for a parking space or worry about, meters and this, that, and the other. So it is a stress relief for them. I think for folks patroning downtown, whether they're coming downtown for dinner, a show, whatever they're coming downtown for, then they can more easily park, which makes the evening more enjoyable than like, oh, I've been driving around for 30 minutes trying to find a place to park. I never want to come downtown again. So I think then it helps those businesses. So I think it's fabulous, and I think it's a win-win, and something I hope continues to grow and we can continue to expand.
You talked earlier about the 11,000 residents, I believe, on the Daniel Island.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and then, of course, you combine if you were to be elected, the parts of downtown Charleston. What do you want? What's that one word you want people to know about Marie Delcioppo?
Transparent. The good, the bad, the ugly. I'm going to lay it out for you. And within that transparency, as I mentioned earlier, I will clearly state, all right, this is my emotions talking, or hey, these are the numbers, I have to back up what I'm saying. And I think that's a, something that does not fall on me lightly. Those residents of Daniel Island elected me to be a voice for them, and I need to be that for them. That's what they expect from me, and that's what I need to give them. And I tell people, the folks in District 1 are smart. Oh my goodness, I meet the most fascinating people with, they're so smart and just very insightful, and, there's no way I could pull the wool over their eyes. And they teach me so much, and I want to communicate with them. I want them to trust me. And I want them to trust, okay, yes, this person who was duly elected to office is doing what she's supposed to do. And, you know, hold me to the fire.
Now, you know there's some heavy hitters and legends on Charleston City Council.
Oh, yes.
How high will your voice go if you were to be elected?
I hope very high. I've worked very hard at, you know, building positive relationships with other council members, and I hope that that continues. And, you know, I hope that the work that I've done on Daniel Island is noticed and, you know, can be spoken for and, you know, therefore trusted in saying, you know, okay, she's been able to accomplish these things for her community. Okay, you know, she's, you know, we need to hear her out.
Okay. Well, to be continued.
Yes, exactly.
Marie Delcioppo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
I really
Quintin.
appreciate it. Yeah, anytime.
This was wonderful.
Thank you greatly.
Thank you.
Anytime. Yes, ma'am.